Hello everyone, welcome back to the Dragons Den podcast. I am your host, a mythical dragon, and I know we've been gone for quite a while, and I have to apologize for that, but if you can see in the title here, Temp Contract Reflection is what we are going to dive into today, so make sure you are cozy, you're comfortable, or if you're enjoying this while out for a walk or at work, thank you. I like that. That's a great idea. So, Temp Contract Reflection is our topic for today as my return episode for the podcast because it will explain why I've been gone for quite a while. So we're going to set up some context of what has happened in the last couple months, and I'm going to reflect on the experience now that I've had some time away from it. I've stepped back and I've talked to a few people who have also helped me out with this, so it's going to be a wonderful little podcast episode today. Let's begin with what has happened. So back in April, towards the end of March, I received a notice that I will be on the substitute supply list for my city's public school board. Amazing opportunity, and I was looking forward to it. I was just going on vacation right when that happened, so I didn't actually start substituting until mid-April. And when that happened, it was wonderful because right away I was able to accept a few jobs at a few different schools. So I got to go to a unique opportunity right away was at a upgrading school, basically. So let's say you want to upgrade your grades after high school to get into college. I went to there and covered biology of all subjects, to be honest. And it was a great opportunity. Just being back in the classroom was wonderful. And then I got to actually go supply for a couple of English teachers. So English is my major from university, and that was exciting. I went to a school on the south side of my city a couple times, actually. I was over there a couple times. And then it led to me realizing, oh my goodness, there's some job opportunity or some supply work basically at my high school that I graduated from. So I went there and covered some social studies at one point, an English class, and then what leads to the temp contract. So the substituting was wonderful, being back in front of the classroom, handing out work, ensuring students were focused and behaved. It felt comfortable. I felt like I was back in my element. No nerves, no stress. I mean, some nerves on the way to the place and to the school. But once I got set up and I knew how everything worked in the school and the projectors and all that jazz, basically, I was off to the running. So that was really wonderful. Now, leading to the temp contract situation here. So I went back to my old high school and covered Spanish, because Spanish is my minor, and I know the language fairly well. I'm not fluent in it by any means, but I can read it, I can understand it. Duolingo is pretty easy for me at this point, although I make very silly, stupid mistakes sometimes, but that's what happens when you're learning a language. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go cover a whole day of Spanish. Absolutely. That's wonderful. At my old high school where I learned Spanish, or when I started to learn it, absolutely, gone full circle. So I went there, did the day, covered it up quite nicely. The students were friendly and quite nice. There was definitely a couple of wild classes in the afternoon, but that's usually how it goes, right after lunch and in the afternoon. Everybody has more energy, so kind of pretty straightforward, pretty basic. But then I got an email towards the end of that cover day saying, would you be able to stay for the rest of the week? So this was at the start of the week. We had just finished a long weekend. So I was in on a Tuesday. And they're like, would you be able to stay for a couple more days at first? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I can stay till Thursday or Friday for sure. Then it became Friday. And then it became extended to Friday. And then I think it was on the Thursday where they asked if I could stay for a couple more weeks. And I was like, yes, absolutely. This is great. And I heard about if you stay for a school for a certain period of time, you'll get a raise basically, because now you're kind of working there full time at a school. And I was like, sure, absolutely. I'll stay here for a couple more weeks for sure. Cue the next day, the Friday. And I was told, would you be okay to stay for the rest of our term, the rest of the semester? And I was like, yes, okay, sure. I've never done this before, but absolutely I can stay till the end of the term. Like, I would be stupid to say no, right? Because as a supply work, that's your dream. To be going to one school every single day instead of bouncing across to the north side, the south side, west side, all over the place, right? So I said yes. And then midway through the following week, the teacher that I was working with and coordinating with, like her classes, she gave me enough lessons basically to get through that first week of being there. And then she gave me class materials for the Monday that I came into. And then after that, she's like, you're on your own. Here's the updates on where everybody's at. So these classes here are going to be moving into their novel study. And the one class that you teach is going to be moving into the travel unit. So everything's going to be up to you and you're on your own. So good luck. I was like, what? I'm sorry, what am I doing? You don't have materials for this? What's going on? And she's like, no, you have to create your own. You're the full-time teacher now, so this is on you. Good luck, and if I get any emails forwarded to me, I'll forward them back to you. I was like, what? I was kind of overwhelmed at that point. And so luckily the following day, the Tuesday, the one class finished the unit because I helped them kind of wrap up their unit that they were working on. So the teacher always has to deal with this class or her classes that after they finish a unit, they watch a movie. So luckily Tuesday, Wednesday for one out of those 4 classes was absolutely good to go. I was like, sweet, I don't have to do anything for them. It gives me a couple days to build their units, their next unit on travel. The other classes, though, were starting right with the novel, and I had no idea what to do. I didn't know where the novel was. I haven't read it. I haven't read a full Spanish novel in ages. Luckily, the department head came and saw me after school on the Monday, saying, do you have everything you need? And I was like, no, I don't actually. How do I get my novels for the students? How do I set up a novel study unit? Is there resources? And I was just panicking basically at that point. And she's like, no worry, need to panic. Tomorrow what you could do for your first class with the novel is make arrangements with the library. The library's code or the number of the phone is this. Call the librarian, see if you can go down and grab the novels. But I will find those resources CDs for you so that you'll have something introductory and kind of fun to start with in the morning. So don't panic, no prep needed right now, but after I give you those materials, that's when it'll be put on to you. And I was like, okay, sure, thank you. So I went home Monday night going, still panicked, still freaking out a little bit because I was like, I don't know what these novels are. I don't even know the title of the novel to look it up online. I was given literally nothing. So I just had to come home and kind of just pull out some nice professional looking clothes because I wasn't subbing anymore. I need to look the part of a teacher. And gosh, yeah, I just had to try to not panic the whole night that Monday that I officially started the contract. Or that I officially started taking over for the rest of the term. Not the contract yet. I'll get there. Tuesday came, and I came in early in the morning because I was like, I'm hoping there's resources on my desk first thing in the morning. Because if not, I don't know what I'm doing with my first block class. Fortunately, there was the novels that I was doing. So I was doing 2 novels between the 3 classes. So the block 1 class and block 4 class, which was nice, like to start the day and end the day with the exact same lesson. It was beautiful. They were doing the same novel. Block 3 was doing a different novel. So I quickly just kind of read the first 2 chapters for both books, got a good vibe for it. And the novels came with a teacher's resources pack. Thank goodness there was that, because when I put the CDs in on the computer, we have the audio track as well, because again, learning a language, you want to read it for yourself, you want to listen to it, you want to speak it, etc. Reading, writing, listening, all that jazz. So I read the first couple chapters first thing in the morning. Like, I got to work early that Tuesday morning, like I think at 7:30 in the morning. Our classes don't start till 9:10, so I got there early. I read the first couple chapters of both books. I got a good idea of what the story was at least leading to or alluding to. And I pulled up that teacher's resources guide and I downloaded a couple worksheets right away, some pre-reading materials, setting up the context of both novels because there is cultural elements. The one book was based in Granada, Spain, and the other book was based in Mazatlan, Mexico. So that was great. I had at least that pre-reading context. They could start reading the novel once they got it. And then we had the audio track, and I basically ended the class with just an episode. I found something on Netflix, because the school has a Netflix account. I found, for Block 1 and Block 4, I found a fun little food documentary about food in Spain, basically. And I thought, you know what, they have done a cooking unit. That's fine. Let's put that on for them at the end of the class. And then for Block 3, I put on a Street Food in Mexico edition, I think what it was, or something along those lines. Or I found a couple episodes from Street Food Latin America based in Mexico, and there was one about in Oaxaca, Mexico, and that is pretty close to Mazatlan. So I was like, you know what, let's do it. Or fairly close to Mazatlan, not very close, but whatever, Mexico. So that's how I kind of just got through that first day, so then I can spend time after classes were over that day officially planning out that unit. And of course travel unit too. Oh my goodness, so much to do. But I got the ball rolling, and I worked a lot of long days to get through this teaching opportunity, because I would come in before 8 a.m. every day, and most days I would work till 4 or 4:30 p.m. Now most people are like, oh, that's only 8.5 hours. But I worked through my lunch hours. I worked through the transitions between classes, that little 5 minutes we had between each classes. I worked. I didn't really take a proper break at all for the whole 7 weeks I was there. So it was a lot. There was a lot. I mean, towards the end I was able to kind of just breathe a little bit, especially when my classes finished their replacement final. I was able to kind of breathe. I actually was able to bring in some things that I wanted to personally work on, like some Toastmasters work, some D&D classes I was planning and reading, and that kind of personal stuff. So that was quite nice near the end of the term, but I'm jumping the gun a little bit. Back to the situation. So I got through the first few days of that full-on teaching by myself situation. I got through Tuesday okay. Barely, but I did it. And then Wednesday came, and it was just before classes started that morning that I got a phone call in the classroom. And I was like, oh no, am I already in trouble for showing my students Netflix? Uh-oh. No, nothing like that. I was fine. It was good. I got called down to talk to the principal of the school. And he just wanted to meet with me real quick to sign some papers. And I was like, what? Okay, sure. I'll be right down, Amy. Click. And quickly just kind of put things in order, put up what I needed on my projector screen, and went downstairs. And I was in his office with another woman. She's important to the story too for later on. But her and I were both in the office, and with our department heads and the principal, and he was saying, I'm just finalizing the paperwork to officially put you guys on our temp contract, which means you'll be working full-time and you'll get the proper pay for a full-time teacher. So let's backtrack a little bit. Let's recap. Started subbing in mid-April, just before mid-April, right? So about April 12th, 13th, I think is when April 20th is when I started, after that week of April 20th, 420. And I had done 3 or 4 subbing jobs at that point. Boom, May came. Started subbing at Lillian regularly, or at my old high school regularly for Spanish. And then not even a month of starting to sub. It was less than a month. I signed a full-time temp contract teaching Spanish. Wild, right? But that's because language teachers are hard to come by, for sure. So I was a necessity. So that was quite wild to officially sign that paperwork and read about it, and to take on all the duties So marking, calling parents, helping students, sacrificing lunches, supervision. Actually, I didn't have to do supervision. That was the nice part. But I had to do all of it. And so reading that and signing it was amazing. I came upstairs smiling, and a few students who came early, there's always a few students who come to class early, and they're like, "What are you smiling about?" Or actually, I was wearing masks, so they didn't know, but they're like, "What's in your hands, miss?" And I was like, "Oh, this is just some paperwork I had to fill out for taking over your class for the next, until finals." And that's going to be the next part of the story, is the student's reaction to it. But yeah, that felt surreal. Just that, again, that timeline of it, right? Starting in April, mid-April, towards the end of April, really. Just subbing for a couple weeks, and then getting into the school, subbing regularly at the school. A lot of old teachers knew me as well, so that kind of helped my cause as well. And boom, signed a contract to teach full-time from May something to June 28th. June 29th, actually. So literally that only happened just about a week ago is when I finished. And just shocking, right? Just amazing. I felt so supported in that way, because they obviously saw something in me in those first few days in cover, that they're like, "You know what, this teacher is going through it. We need someone to come in. You're here. You're willing to put in the work. You've already put in more than what is necessary for the work. Do you want to do this full time?" And I said yes. So yeah, I got a huge pay raise suddenly from subbing to like full-time teaching. And it was amazing. It was so shocking. Let's cue to now student reaction. So the students were funny. The first couple days I was in there, they were like, "Are you going to be here all week?" I was like, "I'm not sure yet," because back when I was just starting with them, I was like, "I'm not sure yet. They've asked me to stay a few more days, so I'm happy to do that." And in that first week I covered for the teacher, I found out a lot about this semester in class and how it went for them so far. And it sounded like their teacher was just in and out quite regularly. They've had a few subs. They had a student teacher at one point, and basically they said that they have attended the class more than their teacher had. So that was a little scary to hear about, right? Because you're like, okay, so there's definitely some resentments, some bitterness, some sadness too. Like some students genuinely miss their teacher. And I was walking into that kind of cesspool of emotions and reactions to Spanish. Pretty hard thing to put on your shoulders for the last part of the semester. But I did it, and I just smiled, and I was like, "I'm so sorry that your teacher has not really been around here for you, but I assure you, I know Spanish enough to help you with your writing, your reading, comprehension, understanding it for sure. I may not speak it as often as your teacher, I will admit that, like fluently, but I will get there. We're going to learn together." And the first couple class, like my first class in the morning, got it. They're like, "That's better than what we could have expected. To have a teacher who knows Spanish finally for the rest of the term, that's better than what they could have hoped for." Block 2 my Block 2 class were very quiet. So they're just in their first year high school, grade 10. So they're a little quiet, little kind of doughy-eyed and going, "Okay, sure," kind of idea. And so they were, I assumed they accepted it at that point. Block 3 were a little more wild and rambunctious and angry. So that was kind of hard, just to be faced with that much anger right away was quite hard and quite like a little shock to the system. But I had to keep reminding myself, and this is going to be true for the whole contract. You're going to hear this in the podcast quite a bit. I had to remind myself they're not angry at me. They're not angry at Dragyn. They're angry at their teacher and how the class has gone. They're not angry at me. I had to constantly repeat that to myself, because I got faced with quite a bit of anger and frustration in my Block 3 and a little bit of my Block 4 class too. Block 4 though, they're a very silly group of kids. I'm not gonna lie, they were teasing each other about having like celebrity crushes in class, like during work periods. I had a couple students that loved to come draw on the board every once in a while. If I didn't need to use the whiteboard in class, I let them, just to kind of get that energy out in the afternoon. So very fun, creative bunch in the afternoon, but there was definitely that anger and resentment to their teacher because they felt abandoned. And this was the first year after a pandemic that they can come back in person, and they're expecting their teachers to be there, and this teacher wasn't for them. So I was faced with a lot of very mixed reactions. Some students were very grateful that I was there, that had that context. And what's amazing is that I've been to Granada in Spain. So my Block 1, Block 4 classes were like, oh, can you tell us about it? And I'm like, absolutely. So that was great. I could build that kind of connection, right? Bringing in culture, my personal experience. They knew I knew Spanish at that point too. And really got them through that novel based on that personal context I have of being in Granada and the Alhambra and all that kind of scenery that was talked about in the book. I was able to explain that context. Block 3, I tried a little bit with Mexico, although I wasn't in that far south of Mexico where Mazatlan is located. I was in Puerto Vallarta is when I was in Mexico for. But still, I could kind of set up some context there about some of the language being used and the culture and some of their mythology. So that was quite nice to build that connection, although it landed on a few people's shoulders, but not the whole class. And I'll get to Block 3 in a moment. So student reaction was quite mixed, and I had to remember that no matter how they're feeling, it's not an attack personally to me. It is just based on their teacher not being there, them feeling abandoned, the pandemic, all that trauma. It was all that. And it was hard to remember that some days because they were just angry. Like sometimes they would just lash out and be like, why are you even here then if you don't speak the language? And I had to constantly remind them, like, no, I know the language. I know I'm not speaking it fluently or like 90% of the time with you guys, but I know the language. I can help you with your assignments. The assignments I've created and made for you, I know how to answer them because I made them. So I can legitimately help you with the work. And it took quite a lot of convincing for quite a few students to get to that point where constantly remind them, I know the culture, I know the language, I know the context, I know how to do this. You just need to ask. Or you just need to let me show you. Took quite a while, and even then, even at the end of the term, it just was not met with that kind of respect or kindness or acknowledgement by students. I did have some success stories, which I'll get to, but yeah, it was quite challenging in that way of just students being like constantly angry and feeling like they learned nothing that year. Even after I stepped in and provided constant, even just having a constant presence and putting in the efforts to help them get through the term, they were still feel like they learned nothing. And even I remember this too, on the last day of classes, when student had the audacity to ask me if I could provide all the classes from the teacher, the refund for the class, of course, because they didn't learn anything. So I was met with that kind of level of just anger and resentment. It was quite hard. There were definitely hard days. I think there was one day or a few days there where I had some sort of really awful feedback from all of my classes, like block 1, 2, 3, 4. It was just constant negativity, and it broke me quite a bit. Until I got to talk to a couple of my teacher friends in the school who just kept reminding me, they're not mad at you. Remember, sounds like you've got engaging lessons. They're working hard. They're completing their assignments. You're doing the work. And I know deep down they appreciate it. It's just that when they're kids, they're teenagers, they're going through things, and it could just be a bad day where they just lash out, but it's not against you. So I had to have a lot of those days, unfortunately, but yeah, it was hard in that regard. And then I've also had a couple other hard times. So I'm going to talk about all the hard things of this job or this temp contract first before I go into like the good things and what I learned. The other hard part was not really knowing the expectations of the course. So I came in, of course, just happy hunky-dory, doing novel study and travel unit. Cool, let's do it. But of course, so behind the scenes for all of you students out there, each course and department has a set minimum of requirements for work being done. Major assessments, minor assessments, homework, final exams. Every course has a set expectations for those things, those categories. I didn't know what those were. So I was just prepared to kind of give some minor assessments here and do like one big major assessment for each class. It was what I was able to do. I got told pretty late in the term, I think there's about 3 weeks left of classes, that no, I need to do another major assessment with them and another minor assessment in 3 weeks, while also finishing the novel and getting a replacement final exam done. I think that was really hard, on top of having to mark the things that Isabel, the other teacher, I'm not going to say her last name because I don't want you guys to go on a witch hunt, she had projects too that when I started weren't marked. So those two aspects there of marking and the behind the scenes of the teacher was hard, because I came in and suddenly I had to mark 4 classes worth of projects and assignments that I didn't create or I didn't make and I didn't know the context for. That was really hard at the beginning, and it took me 2 weeks to get through it all. And I had to chase students too for work, which was a whole new thing, because again, each school has their own rules on how that works and own expectations. I wasn't told what those were until after those 2 weeks of marking was done. So again, just a lot of missing information and missing gaps. So that was quite hard, and students were arguing about their grades quite a bit at that point, and I just kind of let them, because again, who am I to say no about the mark, because it wasn't my project. I didn't make it. So I adjusted a few marks, and that was quite, again, where resentment was built upon students too. And then it came to that last 3 weeks where I had to fit in another major assessments and a minor assessment, and I had to re-plan my entire 3 weeks left, because I didn't know how to fit that all in with the course of action I was going to take. So I think that was one of the days where I stayed at work till 5 p.m. just kind of replanning everything and creating resources and finding projects for them to do, and I did it. I did it, guys. I did. I managed to fit in some pretty cool major assessments. I know for the Block 1 and Block 4 class, they're doing the same novel. They got to do a movie trailer for the book. So or a book trailer, I suppose is what it is. So they had to pick 4 scenes from the novel and incorporate it using imagery, sound, music, and kind of set up a genre of a movie for the book. And a lot of them picked mystery, so there's some really cool things, and you can use images, or some students got into groups of 2 or 3 and managed to act out some of the key scenes together. It was remarkable. That was one project I think I'm really proud of. I did kind of steal it from an English teacher, but I adapted it for the Spanish language learning outcomes. So I really took it and created it, basically made it my own. I honestly did not keep a lot of that from that project. I didn't keep a lot from it. I just kept the structure and the requirements of 4 scenes, and then everything else was me. I created it all. I created it all on my own. That was a fun project for them to do. And then I was going through the novel resources for Block 3. I guess I should share the novel with you guys in case it's all in Spanish, but there are English versions available of the novel. But Block 1 to 4 read Noches Misteriosas en Granada, so I'll make sure I put that in the description for you. Noches Misteriosas en Granada was the novel for Block 1 and 4. Block 3 was La Llorona de Mazatlan, so that one's going to be a hard one to spell out on your own if you don't know Spanish, so I will put that down in the description too, if curious. But for La Llorona, I made them do a Pachacucha presentation. I'll quickly explain a Pachacucha for you guys. Pachacucha is a timed presentation where every slide will automatically switch, basically. Starting with slide 1, as soon as you open up the PowerPoint, slide 1, it'll automatically switch to the next slide in 20 seconds. So it's 20 seconds per slide, and technically it's supposed to be 20 slides for 20 seconds. That's kind of the Pachacucho style, 2020. For the project, though, there was only 14 chapters in La Llorona, so I did 14 slides at 20 seconds. So for each chapter, they had to pick a relevant image to the chapter and explain its relevancy and what happens. Or they could talk about the characters. So I kind of gave them a few options there for at least that part of the project. The second option I gave, outside of the picture per chapter, is they could compare the actual myth of La Llorona in Mexico to the myth from the novel. So 7 slides talking about the way the novel portrays La Llorona, and then 7 slides portraying the other versions of the myth out there. So that was very cool. One student actually did that. All the other students picked one image from each chapter, basically. But the rest of the other students, she blew my mind with her project. I think she got 98 or 100 on it, because she actually went into the detail of all the other versions of the myth, and she found 4 different versions to talk about. So she actually asked me, she's like, can I please do 15 slides? Or can I do 6 slides of the novel and 8 of the other versions? And I let her, because she was really into the project. She was really interested in the myth of La Llorona, so I let her. And that was a really cool project for them to do. And then the minor assessments I did for the major assessment for my travel unit. They had to basically talk about a trip they've been on to a Spanish-speaking country. So part of it was planning it in present tense and then kind of adjusting it to be back in past tense, because the whole focus on the travel unit was, learning the vocabulary of travel and culture and things to do and activities and such. But the real purpose of it was for them to start learning pretérito in past tense. So they had to do their whole project in past tense and talk about a trip they've been on to a Spanish-speaking country. That was really fun. So they had to be very creative. They had to use images, photos. They had to use the past tense. And they had to use the irregular verbs for pretérito, regular verbs for pretérito, a zarkarkar verb. If you guys don't know Spanish, you have no idea what I'm talking about right now. But basically, there's some set requirements that they needed to use based on the pretérito past tense. And yeah, some of them were very creative. Some of them actually went online. One student went online and created an actual website for the project that you can actually click through the different links to see each day of the travel. It was remarkable. For a grade 10 student, I was impressed. So that was their major assessment too for my Spanish 10s. The other classes were Spanish 11, so grade 11 classes. I had 3 grade 11 classes, 1 grade 10 class. And then the minor assessments for all of those that I had to squeeze in there was, for the novel, I did a quiz. Just a quick quiz for, I think, block 1 and block 4. I did a quiz on chapter 10 and 11 for a minor assessment. And then for the Spanish 10s, I made them do a pretérito verb quiz, which they hated. And not a lot of them actually studied for, so that was interesting. But that was my Spanish 10s. They weren't very engaged this year. No matter all the things I did and all the energy I brought into that class, they just weren't engaged. But I did my best. So that's how I was able to kind of fit that in. So the project itself I gave them sort of a Friday, Monday, Tuesday classes to work on it, and the weekend to turn in the project. So about 5-6 days Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 days to get their projects done. And then we had a couple days for the rest of the week to work on the quiz. And then the last week of classes basically was the replacement final. So review for replacement final, and then replacement final in that last week of classes. And so leading up to the major projects, we finished the novel, we did a lot of review for those 3 classes that did that. And then for the travel unit, we did a big review lesson on pretérito and all the travel vocab that I introduced to them, and putting it all together. So that was quite nice. So that was week 1 was review, putting everything together, setting up the contacts, and preparing for the projects. Then it was the project there from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday review for replacement final. Replacement final is on the Monday or the Tuesday, depending on the schedule, because one class needed an extension because half the class was away for a field trip. So there was that kind of either Monday or Tuesday, and then of course I had the Wednesday and Thursday of that last week. In case anyone missed it and would like to do the replacement final, they could. So when that happened, I put on a movie for the last 2 days of classes because I just could not be bothered to do anything else at that point because I was exhausted. I was doing so much marking. Basically, I was marking non-stop. It felt like for the entire temp contract. I think I was marking for 5 weeks out of the 7. I had to do all that marking. That was a lot, guys. That was a lot. And not counting the many students I had to chase for assignments and calling parents and all that jazz too. So that was hard. But there's one more thing I need to set in context about is that replacement final exam. So I wasn't told that their final was going to be replacement final when I started this contract. I was told, yes, you do need to worry about final exams. You will be here for final exams and you will need to create them and mark them. So I was stressed. I was like, what do I do for finals? So when I got towards the end of May, I reached out to my old Spanish teacher, and he was wonderful because he agreed to a Google Meetup real quick, like after school one day. And I explained to him what was going on. Basically what I'm doing in this podcast right now with all of you is setting up all that contacts, and he actually asked me what happened, like when did I graduate, what's been my career like so far. So it's quite fun to talk to my old high school Spanish teacher. But I also found out he is the language resources coordinator for the school board. So that was phenomenal. He sent me so many things that I think I'll keep and use whenever I teach Spanish again, because remarkable help he gave me with that. And then he gave me a course or a nice outline on how I can get the final exams done, because technically for Spanish they have to do a reading writing final and an oral final. So technically 3 parts to a final exam, or what we decided to do was 2-part final. So we did the reading and writing together and then the oral exam. So I had originally planned out my last 3 weeks basically 4 weeks after I talked to him, based on that schedule, that we'll do 2-part finals for all my classes. We kind of had the dates set so I could tell my students that Monday, because I called them on the Friday. And we had that set schedule, and he sent me resources to help me get through it all. And I spent the whole weekend creating the final exams and how I would mark them. All of that done, bam, set up to go. Monday comes. I just finished telling my Block 1 class the plan that I had created with the resources given to me by my old Spanish teacher. Department head walks in. They're doing some quiet reading, independent reading and work. She comes in and says, so what's the plan for finals? And so I showed her, because I had it all in my notebook or in my agenda planner. And she's like, yeah, there's a problem about that. We aren't doing final exams for our classes this year, except for the Spanish 30, so grade 12 Spanish. They're doing a replacement final exam, so that all looks amazing and wonderful, but what you really need to do is go through the Google Classroom that their teacher has set up, go through all those resources and materials, and create a 30 to 50 question, multiple choice question replacement final exam online. And that would be done in the last week of classes. That broke me, because I put in so much work and effort over that weekend to make sure that I had everything I needed for those 4 weeks. Everything I needed for those 4 weeks was created, done, made, set up. I had to practically file that all away and replan and start from scratch. And she said that in front of me and in front of a group of students, two groups of students who sat near my desk. And so when she left and told me that, so this is that was also the day that she told me about the major assessments and the minor assessments requirements, and that I need to do that too. So not only did she tell me that my final exams I created are not going to be used, my plan for the next 3 weeks needs to be rearranged and changed. the students that sat near my desk were like, Senorita Wallace, are you okay? I'm like, no. I need you guys to give me 2 days, maybe 1 day. Give me some time. And I told this to the whole class, what I just told you is not what it's going to be. I can't answer any of your questions at this moment. Please give me some time to replan, rethink. But I assure you that we will get through the next 3 weeks together in one piece. Well, all of you will be in one piece. Let's just say that. And some of them giggled at that. And yeah, I basically, on my lunch break, I just kind of took things apart, looked for project ideas, resources, and, well, you heard what I did there, is I replanned those 3 weeks. And I managed to do that within 24 hours. So, well, less than 24 hours, because I was able to come in on that Tuesday morning, the day after, and tell my classes what the plan was the following day. So I worked through my lunch break. I stayed there on Monday till I think again another 5 p.m. So another like 7:30, 5 p.m. day. And got it all replanned, refigured out, and rehashed out. Came in Tuesday morning, and my students were impressed. Like, all 4 classes were impressed that there was a plan in place. And I knew what I was doing. It didn't feel like I knew what I was doing at the time, but I had at least, put on that air of authority and confidence and told them what was happening and felt great about it. And then it was just a nose to the grindstone again for the last 2.5 weeks of classes, I'll say, was a grind, because I had to quickly make all those projects, quickly make a replacement final exam, while also still teaching what they needed to know for the replacement final and for the novel projects and the travel unit. I was like, I felt like I was in a time machine because I was like planning for things like 2-3 weeks ahead while also still teaching the things that I needed to do that day. So that's kind of, that's life as a teacher, but yeah, I had to like make sure I planned everything that I needed for 3 weeks, because then I knew what I needed to do each class to get them to that point of the project, of the minor assessment, and of the replacement final. So I felt really bad for my students. They had to do 3 assessments in 3 weeks. But they understood what happens. Most of the classes were quite understanding. So that was quite a nice surprise, because I literally worked my ass off. That's the Monday morning that I was told all of those changes I needed to make, to the Tuesday morning, coming into block 1 and saying, okay, this is the plan. These are the dates, write them down, and here we go. So I did it, and I replanned it all. It's very funny, because I think it was a couple of weeks later, when I was near the end there, just getting through my replacement finals, that's my old Spanish teacher reached out to me going, how did everything go? You're probably around the oral final exam time period right now, are you? How's that going? And I had to reply back to him, actually, everything changed. And so I had a nice long Google chat basically with my old teacher, about everything that happened. He's like, I'm so sorry that happened. Normally when teachers start a contract, they are told everything they needed, from the requirements of the course to what you need to do with the students, right when they sign the contract. And you were not told that, and I'm so sorry, but you did it. You're almost done. You're gonna knock that replacement final off their shoes. They're gonna feel so good to replace a major assessment mark with that. And you're almost done. Well done. He actually congratulated me. And I was like, yay. At that point, I was so exhausted. I was like, yay. But now I can look back and be like, oh, yay, he said that. So wild couple months, basically, because I came in at the beginning of May at the school, studying social studies and English at first, and then I jumped into Spanish the following week. So yeah, it was long, from all of May to all of June. I was at Lillian there, and what a wild life I live, hey? What a wild time. But let's talk about the positives now. We're gonna end this podcast episode on the positives. So the positives were that my hard work was being noticed and recognized, because I had naturally, there's classrooms around me. So you know what's funny? I was surrounded by math teachers, and math was not my subject at all. Even in high school, math ain't me. I'm not, no math. So it's kind of funny that I was surrounded by a bunch of math teachers, but the one math teacher actually taught German for a number of years, so she can understand everything, and she was a big help for me for quite a while. Just even her coming and checking and going, "Hey, it's this time of year. You doing okay, Violet?" I'm like, "Sure, doing great." So she was really great. She was wonderful. She was really great. But the whole work being recognized is that they would go to my department head. My department head checked in with me fairly regularly, especially after she dropped the bombshell on me. She dropped that bombshell on me. And she came and checked in regularly on me after that point. Before that, she didn't really stop in, clearly, to support me. But then after that, just quite regularly. And then part of her check-ins, I guess, was going around to the other teachers around my work and be like, "What, do you see Violet when she comes in? What time should she come in?" My department head, by the way, doesn't really come to school until 8:50, 20 minutes before classes starts. I was in by 7:38 every morning. And so she was kind of getting building up that kind of story of how hard I worked from them. And the one teacher across the hallway, her and I had a competition. We both would walk in at the same time, and then we lean in and look between the one, we had a window in the door, look at the window and see who's still working and who's not, who's gonna leave first, kind of thing. And she always left first. I was always working past her. But yeah, so they actually told my department had all that too, so my hard work is being noticed and recognized. Even one of the assistant principals, who I got to know and learn her name very late in my contract, kind of the last few weeks of school, basically, she actually was impressed to hear some of the things that the other teachers had said too. And while there was no opportunity for me to kind of get a contract or stay with the school at the end of the year, unfortunately, they still did something really remarkable. We had to do a year-end luncheon, so I actually technically worked half a day on the 29th, and then the other half was luncheon. I got paid for the whole day, though. Woo. But the year-end luncheon was free food, basically, and you got to go there. And we got to eat and kind of bond with the other colleagues around us, and then there was little presentations, so farewells, and our principal actually was retiring this year, so big farewell at the end. But what I was surprised to hear and find out, my friend Brooke hid this so well, because she signed the freaking card, so she knew something was happening at the year-end luncheon, but didn't tell me. So good for her. That's really impressive. But the other lady I signed my contract with on the same day, I found out about her situation, and she was put through a lot more worse than I was. She was teaching 3 online classes and then 1 in-person class. The online classes were at a different schedule than the in-person classes, so she only ever got a 20-minute lunch break. So she was constantly just working through every break as well, because of that pretty messed up schedule. So it was kind of sweet. We got to the presentations, and yeah, they invited her up, and one of the assistant principals did a speech on her behalf, basically, because she worked really hard with the admin team, because again, with that schedule, you need to work that hard with the admin team. And so he had a lot of really nice things to say about her. And then we got a little gift bag that had a coffee mug that has little the high school's name on it, the year it was founded, a card, and some candy. So it was really sweet. So that was her. And then my department head was called up to speak for for Violet Wallace. And her speech was so sweet, very, very sweet. She talked about everything, because she got to learn about my previous teaching experience too, naturally, in conversation. So she shared it all with them, because she knew I was the first graduating class of the high school. So I guess I left that part out. My high school was founded in 2009. That was the year I entered the high school, and we were the only grade 10. Like grade 10 was the only class allowed in because the school was still being built, naturally. And so yeah, naturally, year 10 or grade 10 ended, grade 11, grade 12. So I was part of the first graduating class. I did not mean to drop my microphone like that. I'm so sorry, guys. Here we go. So it was really kind of neat. She set up that contacts, explained I was part of the first graduating class. Then I spent 2 years in the United Kingdom teaching, came back here, and then only was able to just get on the supply list back in April, blah, 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 filled in all that contacts. But then her speech got even more funny. She was like, and we threw everything at Violet. I don't know how much anyone out, like any of the other temps here had to do, but we threw everything at Violet. She had to chase down students, had to call parents home, had to do progress reports, had to do marking, created assessments, make assessments, mark them from scratch. She did it all. She was here way earlier. I never saw Violet because she was either here way before I came into the school or way after I left the school. So she worked around the clock, and we are so much better for it. Her students, while they may have tested her quite a few times in the last little couple months, I'm sure deep down they appreciated all the effort, and I know I do. And so that was really sweet. She's like, and I could see her going far in her career. That was really sweet. So I got recognized in that way, and the coffee mug is special to me because it says like my high school's name, founded in 2009. And so that's like a really special keepsake for me because, yeah, I was part of that founding of the school. I was a student. So really special, really, really nice moment there. You know, that year-end luncheon. So that was, again, like that was lots of positives in one. Being recognized for my hard work, my colleagues reporting to my department head about how much I am working, to that year-end luncheon recognition. And on my way out of that year luncheon too, a lot of the assistant principals and the admin kind of crew were saying, we're going to see you again. We're going to see you in the fall. Even if it's subbing, you will see you again. So this isn't goodbye, it's have a good summer. We'll see you in the fall. So that's a good sign. And a lot of them gave me advice too, that usually August is when we kind of figure out the final numbers for students and classes and how many sections are needed for certain things. So there might even be a position that might open up. So just keep your eyes down, even at the school or even other schools around in the city. Just keep an eye and ear open. And my my old Spanish high school teacher is so funny because he was like, pester HR. Just pester them. Ask them for opportunities. Ask them for like if any school is missing a Spanish teacher or an English teacher or whatever I'm comfortable teaching. Like pester when it comes to August. So that's kind of part of the plan in August is to pester HR, apparently. Another couple positives here. I did have an impact on some students, even though I was only there for a few months or a couple months. 7 weeks, whatever, 2 months. And because one student realized that she basically messed up. Let's be honest, she fucked up. And she let her mark drop so incredibly low. Like, pretty bad failing. Like, down below, I'll say her full grade, but like lower than 35%, I'll say. And so for that time that I was there, I helped her build that mark back up. I let her redo a couple projects, because that was what really brought her mark down, is that she just turned in bare minimum stuff, and it never was a passing grade. So I let her redo a couple projects. I helped her like one-on-one with quite a few things too to help her pick up the language and the novel. And I brought that mark up, so let's just go below 35%. I'm not going to tell you the real number. I brought her mark up from that low all the way up to just below 70%. Just through that, and that was a success story. So that student saw something in me, saw that I was able to help, and I helped her. So that was a really cool thing that happened. And I did that for a couple students too. There's a couple students that I was able to, even if they just needed my lunchroom or needed my classroom to work through lunch period to get some stuff done or to upgrade their marks a bit, I let them. Because, again, you heard their semester. They barely had their teacher there. So I was like, no, I'm going to be here for you. So about 3 or 4 students I was able to help boost their marks up a bit. Even if it's from like a high 80s to like 90s, they were still really appreciative. Another success story was I had one student who was just an absolute menace. Just an absolute menace for a couple weeks there, and I finally gave in, and I gave him a couple warnings, asked him to stay after school, come in at lunch, never did. And so I finally was like, you know what, I'm calling home. I found out how to look up the student's number, like how to contact home, called home, and the parents was so amazing. Like, it's very rare to have a parent so involved in their students' academics and how they're doing, like personally, like mentally, emotionally, everything. And this parent was, and gave me a lot of context of what's going on with the student. So a lot is going on with that poor kid. So I honestly started to feel a lot more understanding and more patient to an extent. Deadlines still need to be made, but she wanted to know like when deadlines were so she can get on him to finish things. Even if it was a day or two late, she's like, I hope that's okay, but he will get it to you, I promise. And I was like, I appreciate that. Here are the deadlines for these projects coming up. This is when the replacement final exam is, and your support means a lot. And so having that parent connection with the student made everything just remarkably better. I had a couple opposite situations where I tried to contact the parents, no answer, emailed, nothing. Talked to the students over and over again, nothing, no changes, but you know, that is the way it goes sometimes. But I had some really good success stories there, and my one class surprised me. I didn't really get gifts. I didn't expect gifts, to be honest. But one class did create a little card, a little like thank you card, and had everybody sign it that showed up on time. And they were really sweet in the card, like very, very kind, and just said, like, you know, thank you for putting up with my class, because yeah, block 3 was a little wild and rambunctious. Like, a lot of them couldn't stay in their seats for longer than like 10 minutes, for example. So rambunctious class, but they were really, really sweet with their messages in the card there. So I was able to feel like that effort was recognized by the students as well as staff. And then near the very end of semester, I had a couple emails come in from 2 students who wanted to really make sure I knew how much they appreciated the work and effort I put in. And that was really kind. Like, I'm even getting teary-eyed right now thinking about those emails, because one of the students kept teasing about how like much of a shit show this class has been, even after I started, and I thought she hated me. I really did. I thought she hated me. And so to get her email saying that like that was not the case, she was just playing it up because of everybody else. Okay, fucking teenagers. But everything that they said in that email was so kind, and it felt more good to get those 2 emails and the card than it did like from the year-end recognition print of all the staff. Because, yeah, they were able to point out some of my strengths as a teacher, too. Like, we appreciate how much you care, how much you offered your room to everyone. You were willing to stay after school for us. You were able to really slow down and explain things bit by bit, chapter by chapter, paragraph by paragraph. And so that was really sweet. We're just actually really confidence boosting and reaffirming, you know, that I want to be a teacher. And I have to really lean on these things here that I'm coming to a conclusion about, is that it was tough. It was absolute tough 7 weeks with so much thrown at me and changed and altered and adjusted. So much was thrown at me. It really challenged me quite a bit, from students to staff to department head to expectations. So much was thrown at me, but I know I did a good job because the department head acknowledged it in a really long speech at the year-end luncheon to really show that she noticed and saw everything that I did. But to get that card from my one class, one of the rough classes I had, and the emails from those 2 students, like, was amazing. And even the students verbally said, like, you know, like, thank you so much for working so hard for us, and you know, I had, like, leaning on that, can look back and say this was a great contract. It was a great experience. And it was far better than what I did in the UK, far better than what I experienced there. And it just feels right. It feels like this is what I need to do. So going into the next academic year, I'm subbing again next year. I didn't get a contract, but I have a feeling that I put the feelers out there. I'm known, at least for sure in this school, I'm pretty well known. And I'm sure I'm going to land somewhere again with a contract. Hopefully next year. There's that reflection. I'm emotional, so I'm going to end it there. But I hope this kind of explains my absence too. I was thrown all this at me very quickly, very suddenly, and that's why episodes and things have been very delayed, so I apologize. I'm back to normal here a little bit. I've got episodes planned basically into September now, so I should have regular content for you. But I think this explains what I've been going through and what I went through, and I'm honestly glad I did. Like, even if it was tough and hard on me, I'm very glad for this experience. And yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments. And yeah, all is good. We'll end it here. So thank you for listening to my temp contract reflection. This is the Dragyn's Den podcast. Like if you liked this content. Comments if you want to see anything else or other topics you want me to talk about. That'd be great. And subscribe for more, because I also do gaming as well. So I will see you guys in whatever is posted next on the channel. Take care out there, and bye!